I've been training for 15 years, and in this video I'm going to tell you exactly how long it takes you to build muscle. And it's a lot longer than what most fitness YouTubers will tell you it is. In reality, 8-week transformations don't exist. And I'm saying this as someone who's got an 8-week fat loss program. By the way, if you want to know more about that, the link is in my description. But in reality, that's all it is. It's just a fat loss program. You can't actually build a physique in that time. You can just reveal the physique that you already had. So the best way to achieve a quick transformation is to spend years building muscle first. Now, if you want to get into the science behind it, you can look into the Lyle McDonald model, or you can look at the Aragon model. You can look at their kind of respective theories on building muscle naturally. But they both have a similar sort of theme. I've got them both in front of me here, and what they're both saying is really that as a natural lifter, over time, the amount of muscle that you'll build will go down. It'll be greatest at the start, when you first start lifting, and that will reduce over time. And in my experience, that is what happens. Like, as you've been training for longer, the amount of muscle you can build year on year is going to reduce. But I also think there's a mindset thing there. I think, if you believe that to be true, and if you limit yourself to only building a certain amount of muscle, then that's probably going to happen, because in reality, although that's what seems to happen, the reason for that probably isn't down to a genetic thing or a natural limitation. It's probably down to the fact that after a while, when someone's been training for 3, 4, 5 years, even 10 years, they get to the point where maybe they're just not progressing the same. When you first come in, you pick up the 10 kilos dumbbells, you do a chest press with them, and it's quite tough at the beginning, but then you get up to 12s, then you go up to 15s, you find yourself climbing up the rack. And then you'll get to a point where maybe you're doing 40s, maybe you're doing 50s, you've got to a point where you're fairly strong, and you get kind of comfortable with that. You stop pushing yourself as much, you stop pushing the limits. So is that happening because naturally our progress is going to tail off anyway, or is that happening because you've got lazy and you stop pushing yourself as much, you stop progression as much? Yes, progression is going to be harder to come by when you're shifting more load, there's no doubt about it, but it doesn't mean it's impossible to come by. And I think if your mindset's in the right place, if you keep applying it and you keep trying to push yourself, then eventually you will get up those weights, you will get stronger, and you will build more muscle. There's no stopping you if you just keep going and going and going. And for me, I'd say I'm someone that very much fell into that category. When I first started training, to be honest, I wasn't really doing it well enough. I was just going around doing a wee circuit at the local gym, having a shot of every machine, doing some ab exercises, and that was me. I didn't actually maximise the newbie gains that you get when you first start training. It wasn't until I'd been training for maybe 3 or 4 years that I was actually, or going to the gym for 3 or 4 years, that I was actually doing a structured program that was actually targeting everything the way I needed it to work. And then once I got into bodybuilding, once I was maybe 5 years in, I didn't really have a great physique. You could maybe tell that I'd been going to the gym, but it wasn't a great physique by any means, but it was a good starting point. And then I started doing structured gaining phases and structured cutting phases, and I had a bit more of a kind of structure to how everything was going. I had a bit more of a plan rather than just being someone who goes to the gym and tries to eat healthy. And that's where things really started to take off. When I first started getting into natural bodybuilding, I started having phases dedicated towards cutting, and phases dedicated towards gaining muscle. I built a lot of muscle in those years, around about what would that be, year 4, 5, 6 training. I think I built the majority of the muscle that I've got now because I was hungry for it. I was, pushing myself in gaining phases. I was getting stronger in the gym, and I was focusing on, being as strong as I possibly could, building things up in my off season, my gaining phase. And then, when I dieted down, I always came back with more muscle. And still to a degree, that's what I'm doing. But I will admit, for me, naturally, it has slowed down. But is that because I'm getting older, or is that because I'm just not pushing myself as much? And to be honest, for me, it's the latter. I've not been pushing myself as much. Some of that's been down to injuries, of course, but some of that's maybe just been down to drive. I'm maybe not as driven to build as much muscle anymore. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I've got to a stage where I'm fairly comfortable and fairly happy with my physique. But if I was someone who's trying to build as much muscle as possible, and I was trying to make a big change to my physique, then I'd be making sure I'm driving up those numbers. I'd be seeing every week in the gym as an opportunity to get better and an opportunity to gain more muscle. So why do so many people struggle to build muscle? I think it's because a lot of people get bored. Building muscle and going through a gaining phase, it can be a bit mundane, because obviously you start pushing your calories up, you start eating a bit more, but you probably find you get to a stage where you've pushed them enough, you're eating enough food, and you don't really need to change it too much. And then obviously training wise, it's a case of just doing the same thing week in, week out, okay? You don't need to be changing your program every so often. You don't need to be shocking the muscles. You just need to get a program that works well for you, that isn't going to injure you, and one that you can continue progressing, okay? And if you do the same shit day in, day out, week after week, month after month, and you get better at it, you progress within that program, well, that is where you're going to make those gains. That is where you're going to build the most muscle. But to most people, that's boring, and most people get shiny object syndrome. You know, they'll start one program, they'll do it for 2 weeks, and then they'll change it up again, change their exercises up, and they'll think it's great because they're like, oh, I got a bunch of DOMs, you know, I really feel that leg workout. Well, that's what happens when you change your exercises up. You know, what creates that muscle soreness most of the time is just a novel stimulus. So, you know, if you've not been doing squats for a while, right, let's just say you've done 2 months where you've not done barbell squats, and you go back to barbell squatting, then guess what, your legs are going to be really sore. And that applies to any exercise, you know, for any body part. Just when we've not done it for a while and we bring it back in, of course we're going to get that soreness, but that soreness isn't an indicator of an effective workout. It's just that you're not recovering the same. That's all it is. It doesn't indicate any better like kind of reference to building muscle than not being sore does. In fact, if you can train hard, progress your numbers, and you're not sore after it, that's a sign that you're getting the dosage of exercise right and you're recovering well. So when we recover well, that's when we're going to grow. So actually, maybe not being sore or minimising soreness might be more of a positive thing. But the reality of it is building muscle takes time, and most people get bored, and that's why they quit. When I look at how long I've spent building muscle over the last 10, 11 years since 2015, I've spent 79 months in a gaining phase. That's a lot of time spent building muscle. I'm not even that big, and I actually started training back in 2011, but I just, as I say, I didn't really have a structure to it back then. I didn't really, you know, structure it into gaining phases, dieting phases, so I couldn't possibly, like, you know, figure out, you know, where I was at that time. So since 2015, since I started structuring it, that's 79 months. So how many years is that? That's like 6 years, okay? That's a long time to be spending gaining muscle, but it's what I've needed to do to build the physique I've got today. And unfortunately, doing a 8-week or 12-week gaining phase isn't going to be enough. It's not going to build your physique. It's not going to change your physique that much. What we need to do is we need to spend a dedicated period of time to gaining muscle. And I would say as a bare minimum, you want to spend 6 months to a year in a gaining phase. Especially if you're a younger lifter, you're newer to it. Those like early years when you're getting those newbie gains, spending more of them gaining muscle, in my opinion, is going to be more beneficial. And when I look back on what I've done, I think especially in those early years, I spent too long cutting. Like I spent too much time cutting that I should have concentrated on just building muscle. And I think I wasted some of that like newbie gains or some of that natural potential back then, like dieting down and not making the most of it. And that's just one of the mistakes I've made along the way. If you want to hear about more mistakes I've made along the way, I actually made a free downloadable guide called the Transformation Timeline. And basically what this is a timeline of how I've transformed my physique, and it's basically telling you guys the mistakes that I made along the way so that you don't make the same ones. So just head over to the link in the description and download that for free. This guide is literally going to save you years on your journey. It's going to save you wasting time on the mistakes that I made. You'll be able to skip right past them and do the right thing straight away by simply just flicking through this quick and easy guide. So, what will speed it up? First of all, not getting distracted. Shiny object syndrome, as I said earlier in the video, we don't want to get distracted by, oh, look at this new way of training, or look at what so-and-so is doing. Stick to the things that are working for you, be consistent with them, and get better at doing them. Get stronger at your lifts over time. The next thing would be being consistent. Consistency is one of the main things behind building muscle over time. You need to keep turning up, you need to keep doing the do, you need to keep eating the food, doing the training, sleeping well. Don't worry about being perfect. You don't need to be perfect all the time. You just need to keep turning up, okay? Because the people who don't get anywhere are the ones who get bored and they start, stop. They will never build a proper physique. If you're consistent, you're just working away in the background, you're maybe not doing anything special, but you keep turning up, you are going to build a physique over time. There's no doubt about it. The next one would be being really clear on your goals. If you're bulking, bulk. Dedicate, as I say, 6 months to a year at least to your bulks to get the most out of them. If you're cutting, cut. Don't start a cut, then change your mind and decide you want to bulk because you get a little bit hungry, and don't start a bulk and then look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm holding a bit too much fat, I'm going to cut. If you end up yo-yo dieting, that is the hardest way of staying the same. If you wanted to maintain, you could just maintain. But if you end up yo-yo dieting, you're going to stay looking the same, but you're just going to make it a really difficult way of doing so. And the final way to speed it up is get yourself a coach. If you've got a coach, someone who's been there and done it, someone who's achieved what you want to achieve, of course they're going to have all the shortcuts to success for you because they're going to make sure, again, you don't make the same mistakes that they make. Obviously, I offer coaching, so if anyone is interested in my coaching service, again, I'll put another link in the bio. You can obviously, or the description should I say, you can obviously reach out on there if you want to know more about that. But again, I've got my free transformation timeline that you can download if you want to know more about the mistakes I've made along the way. So the long and short of it is, when it comes to gaining muscle, don't worry about how long it's going to take. Just get really good at doing the things you need to do day in, day out, okay? Focus on the process, focus on doing the do, and don't worry about how quick the results are coming. Because essentially, when it comes to building muscle, you need to think in months and years, not weeks and days. It's going to be a long-term project. Did you really think that changing your body was going to be a quick thing? Of course it's not. It's going to take time, and you need to be willing to dedicate the time to doing it if you want to build muscle naturally.